Have you ever found yourself wondering why the pain seems so endless, or why the struggles you faced feel insurmountable? Do you carry the weight of past afflictions, asking yourself if you will ever break free from the chains that bind you? It's natural to feel overwhelmed by these questions, especially when it seems like the challenges keep piling up and hope feels like a distant memory. The wounds we carry often become heavy burdens, and the fear of repeating the past can cloud our vision of the glorious future that God has prepared for us. But let me remind you, God does not bring you through pain and suffering only to abandon you at the crossroads. Your afflictions are not meaningless. They are shaping you, refining you for the purpose He has set aside for you. It may feel as though you are walking through fire right now, but just as gold is purified by heat, your soul is being refined for a greater calling. What if the pain you're experiencing today is the exact thing God is using to prepare you for an extraordinary future? The Bible says in Romans 8 verse 18, "I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Every tear you've cried, every sleepless night you've endured, is leading to a glory far greater than anything you've experienced." There is a longing deep within us all, whether it's a desire for healing, restoration, or simply peace of mind that whispers for a better tomorrow. We crave relief, a way out of the darkness. But God sees those longings, and He knows the desires of your heart better than anyone else. What if this very season of affliction is the necessary path toward the fulfillment of those desires? What if your scars are the roadmap to a new chapter of blessing, growth, and transformation? Don't give up yet. God is preparing something far more beautiful than you can imagine. Your affliction is not a sign of His absence, it's proof that He is working behind the scenes, preparing you for something greater. Stay with me as I share some specific steps and insights on how to trust God through these painful seasons, and how to allow His hand to guide you toward the glorious destiny He has planned. Before we move on, I'd love to hear from you. If this message resonates with your heart, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, and share how God has been at work in your life. Your journey matters, and together we can encourage one another toward the victory that lies ahead. Let's continue this journey of faith, hope, and healing. Stay tuned, God is not done with you yet. Can I hear a hallelujah from you? C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." Have you ever wondered why the challenges you face seem unrelenting, or why every step toward your dreams feels like it comes with resistance? Perhaps you've questioned if all this pain is worth it, or if you'll ever reach the future you've hoped for. These moments of doubt can weigh heavily on your heart, especially when it seems like the devil is intent on keeping you from your God-given purpose. But what if, through these very trials, God is molding you for something far beyond what you could imagine? Before we dive deeper, if you're new here, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell to stay connected for more content that will inspire and uplift you on your journey. The truth is, God has a plan for your life, a glorious destiny that surpasses your wildest expectations. But don't be surprised when the enemy tries to stand in your way. The devil will never sit idly by and watch as you step into God's promises without opposition. This is why the challenges you face can feel overwhelming at times. Yet, remember what 2 Corinthians 4 verse 17 tells us: "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all."
The afflictions you're experiencing now, though they may feel heavy, are temporary. They are a small part of the grand story that God is writing for your life. Your destiny, the purpose God has created for you, is so much greater than the pain you're enduring right now. It's easy to become consumed by the struggles of today and lose sight of the incredible future ahead. But don't forget, your story is not over yet. God is still at work, and the best chapters are yet to come.
Stay encouraged. And if this message speaks to you, please like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's continue this journey together, trusting that what God has prepared for us is far greater than any challenge we currently face. C.S. Lewis once observed, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why pain often feels so isolating? Why it can weigh you down so deeply that the scars you carry seem invisible to the world around you? Perhaps you've wondered if anyone truly understands the battles you're fighting behind closed doors. Many people desire the outward signs of success, the accolades, and the glory, but few are willing to embrace the painful process it takes to get there. We all long for victory, yet we seldom recognize that pain is often the doorway to it. Lewis speaks of how suffering shapes us into who we are meant to become, and the truth is, every great person carries scars that are often hidden from view. These scars may never be seen by the world, but they are the silent witnesses to the struggles endured, the heartbreaks overcome, and the personal battles fought in solitude. And perhaps, like many of us, you have scars no one sees. These scars are not signs of defeat, but the evidence of resilience and transformation. God is your ultimate coach, walking alongside you through the refining fires of life's trials, much like an Olympic athlete is guided by their coach, unseen by the audience but pivotal in the journey. But are you in the middle of such a season, feeling like the weight of your trials is too much to bear? Do you feel as though your hardships are purposeless? Yet, consider this: what if these trials are exactly what God is using to birth something greater in you? No champion is made without hardship. Just as an athlete is tested and pushed to their limits, we too must go through seasons of pain, discipline, and pruning. And yes, it's often in the silence, when no one is watching, that God does His deepest work in us. This journey isn't easy, but the fruit it produces is worth far more than the pain endured. What if the afflictions you face today are shaping a message within you, a testimony that the world needs to hear? Though you may not understand it now, there is a purpose behind every trial. These hidden scars you bear are the seeds of the story God is writing in your life, a story that will eventually speak of His glory. Stay with me as I delve deeper into this truth, unpacking the ways in which God uses our pain to refine us and lead us into a glorious destiny. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "The enemy will not see you vanish into God's company without an effort to reclaim you. Have you ever noticed how, during your most difficult moments, the doubts seem to grow louder, and the whispers of despair begin to fill your heart? Those subtle, yet persistent thoughts that tell you to give up or question God's goodness, these are not mere thoughts, but tactics of the enemy to derail you from the divine plan that God has laid out for your life." Have you felt that tug of negativity, as though the weight of your struggles might suffocate your faith? The devil often uses our darkest moments to plant seeds of doubt, hoping to distract us from the glorious future that God is preparing. But what if these moments of despair are not the end, but the beginning of something far greater? What if, instead of yielding to those negative whispers, you use this very moment as an opportunity to strengthen your faith? The enemy's goal is not just to make you suffer, it's to make you lose sight of who you are in Christ and the incredible future He has designed for you. Yet, in the words of C.S. Lewis, hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. Could it be that your current suffering is merely a step toward a greater purpose? This is your moment to rise above the lies and the doubts. Instead of allowing the enemy's whispers to cloud your vision, turn toward God with renewed strength. The Bible reminds us in James 1 verse 2-4, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." The challenges you face are not meant to destroy you, they are meant to fortify your spirit and prepare you for the destiny God has in store. Stay with me, because I'm about to share powerful insights and practical steps that will help you see your afflictions in a completely different light. This is your chance to deepen your relationship with God, to cling to His promises even tighter, and to understand that no trial can separate you from the love He has for you. C.S. Lewis once observed, "We are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us, we are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be." Do you ever find yourself questioning why hardships keep surfacing, or if the trials you face are a form of punishment from God? It's in our nature to wonder why we must endure pain and suffering, especially when it feels as though the weight of the world is on our shoulders. Yet, what if the very afflictions that trouble your heart are not signs of divine punishment, but rather instruments of growth? What if, in the midst of these trials, God is silently molding you into something stronger and more resilient than you ever imagined? The truth is, God does not bring suffering into our lives to harm us. As much as the enemy seeks to use these difficulties to destroy our faith, God uses them to refine and perfect us. Think of the sculptor chiseling away at stone. Each strike may seem harsh, but it reveals the masterpiece within. In the same way, God uses your trials to shape your character, to strengthen your resolve, and to draw you closer to His divine purpose. Isaiah 43 verse 2 reminds us of His faithfulness. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, the flames will not set you ablaze. Have you ever stopped to think that, rather than being a punishment, your hardships might be God's way of preparing you for something greater? The pain you feel today could be the foundation of the strength you need tomorrow. God will never abandon you in your trials. Even in your darkest moments, when it seems like the waters are rising too high or the flames too intense, He is with you. He doesn't merely observe your suffering, He carries you through it, ensuring that the afflictions won't consume you. Lewis also said, God allows us to experience the low points of life in order to teach us lessons that we could learn in no other way. Sometimes these low points feel overwhelming, as though the weight of your trials is too heavy to bear. But what if these moments are exactly what you need to reach the next level of faith, wisdom, or purpose? What if the fire you're walking through is the only thing that can prepare you for the mission God has in store for you? God doesn't waste your pain. Every struggle, every tear, every setback has a purpose. His goal is not to break you, but to build you, and He does so with precision and love. Like a gardener pruning a vine, He trims away what is not necessary, what hinders growth, so that you can flourish. What if this season of hardship is the very tool God is using to elevate you to new heights, to make you stronger, more faithful, and more equipped for the future He has planned? So instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" perhaps the question should be, "What is God trying to teach me through this? What strength is being birthed in you right now? What faith is being cultivated?" Hold on to the promise that He will never leave you, that He is working even when you cannot see it. You are being prepared for something far greater than the pain you're enduring now. Take heart, because this is not the end of your story. Stay with me, because in the next few moments, we'll explore practical ways to lean on God through these trials and discover how He's working behind the scenes for your good. If this message resonates with you, please take a moment to like and comment, and share how God has carried you through in your own life. Together, we can strengthen each other as we walk through life's fires, trusting that God will not only see us through but transform us in the process. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "God allows us to experience the low points of life in order to teach us lessons that we could learn in no other way." Have you ever wondered why you're facing what seems like relentless suffering, as if every hope has been stripped away? Like Job, who lost everything he held dear. It's easy to feel abandoned or punished by God during these dark seasons. Yet, what if these very trials are not punishments, but opportunities for refinement? What if the pain you're enduring is a tool in God's hand, shaping you for something far greater than you can imagine? Consider the story of Job again. God didn't allow the devil to take everything from Job out of anger or indifference. Instead, He saw beyond the immediate loss, knowing that Job's faith and perseverance would lead to an even greater blessing. After enduring immense suffering, Job was restored not just to his former life, but twice over. What if your current struggles are leading you toward a future restoration that is more than you ever thought possible? Could it be that God, in His infinite wisdom, is using this furnace of affliction to refine you into something stronger, more resilient, and more prepared for the destiny He has planned? We often long for trophies and rewards in life, but seldom do we recognize that these victories come only through perseverance and hardship. The gold medal isn't awarded without the grueling hours of training. The victorious battle isn't won without enduring the war. Your struggles, like Job's, are not meaningless. They are the soil in which your growth is taking root. One day, you will look back on this time, and the purpose will be clear. You'll understand that God was not absent or indifferent. He was actively working, using every tear, every heartache to bring you closer to the glory He has prepared. But in the present moment, as you sit in the midst of your pain, ask yourself, do I trust that God is not punishing me, but refining me? Can I hold on to faith, knowing that the affliction I face now will one day make sense in the light of His greater plan? As C.S. Lewis noted, we are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us. We are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be. It's natural to feel the weight of uncertainty, but remember that God's hands are never idle, even in your darkest hours. C.S. Lewis once remarked, "We are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us. We are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be." Have you ever asked yourself, why does my pain persist? And where is God in the midst of it all in those quiet moments of struggle? It's easy to feel like your faith is faltering, or that perhaps you've done something wrong to deserve the hardship. Guilt begins to creep in, whispering that maybe your prayers are unheard, or that you are inadequate in God's eyes. Have you ever found yourself asking, what more can I do for God to finally lift this burden? But my friend, I urge you to remember this truth: the trials you are experiencing are not a result of insufficient faith or sin. Pain is not a punishment from God. His mercy flows endlessly, extending grace time and again, even when we falter. Often we carry the weight of guilt, convinced that if we had only been better, stronger, or more prayerful, our afflictions might have been avoided. However, Proverbs 24 verse 16 reminds us that a righteous man falls 7 times and rises again. God does not condemn you for falling, rather, He extends His hand to lift you up each time you do. The silent seasons, when it feels like God is distant, are not evidence of His absence. These are moments where His work is happening deep within, often unseen. Think of Job, who endured unimaginable suffering, not because of his failings, but because God had a greater purpose for his pain. Could it be that your current struggle is not a result of God's punishment, but His preparation for something beyond your understanding? This trial you are facing is not an indication of God withholding His love or blessings from you. In fact, it may be quite the opposite. He is carefully refining you, shaping your heart, and preparing you for a future that aligns with His divine purpose. If God hasn't removed this burden yet, it's because His work through it is not yet complete. So instead of carrying the burden of self-condemnation, place your trust in the process. Know that God is in control, and He will bring you through this trial when His purpose has been fulfilled. Don't lose heart. There is a reason for your struggle, and on the other side, you will find a greater glory. Keep your faith strong and allow God's grace to fill your heart, knowing that He is with you, even in the silence. C.S. Lewis once remarked, "We were promised sufferings. They were part of the program. We were even told, 'Blessed are they that mourn,' and I accept it." Have you ever felt the weight of isolation? The kind that grips your heart when those closest to you seem to drift away? It's during the darkest moments of life that loneliness becomes an uninvited companion, making the road to your destiny feel unbearably heavy. Do you wonder why those who once surrounded you with support now seem distant, leaving you to walk this journey alone? Perhaps this season of solitude is not a punishment, but rather a divine invitation to lean more deeply into God's presence. Just as Jesus was abandoned in His most vulnerable hour, you too may face the pain of walking through trials without the comfort of human companionship. Jesus, despite being surrounded by multitudes who witnessed His miracles, stood nearly alone during His most agonizing moments, His trial and crucifixion. Even Peter, the disciple who vowed unwavering loyalty, faltered under pressure and denied knowing Him. Only John remained at the foot of the cross, a reminder that even in the midst of abandonment, God places certain individuals in our lives to walk with us through the valleys. But what if this loneliness you feel is meant to teach you something more profound? Could it be that God is allowing this season of isolation to shift your focus from relying on others to fully depending on Him? Sometimes He removes the people we lean on, not to punish us, but to draw us closer to His heart. As Lewis insightfully wrote, God cannot give us happiness and peace apart from himself, because it is not there. There is no such thing. Perhaps the absence of those around you is God's way of inviting you to find your ultimate comfort, strength, and purpose in him alone. This journey you're on toward your destiny, toward the person God has called you to be, may feel solitary, but you are never truly alone. God's presence is constant, even when human companionship is not. Take heart in knowing that your isolation has a purpose, and that purpose is divine. Trust that God is using this moment to build a deeper reliance on him and to prepare you for the greater destiny he has in store. Before we move forward, reflect on this. Have you been feeling abandoned by the people you once thought would be there for you? Take a moment to think about how God might be using this season to strengthen signs of failure, but of divine preparation. What if the weight you're carrying is meant to shape you into something extraordinary? Your journey is unlike anyone else's because the purpose God has for you is uniquely yours. The intensity of the challenges you face is directly tied to the magnitude of the calling he has placed on your life. Remember, as Lewis pointed out, God doesn't want something from us. He simply wants us. He wants all of you, the parts that feel broken, the pieces you wish were different, and even the doubts that linger in your heart. Every trial, every painful moment, is part of the training that will make you into the person he has designed you to be. It's easy to look at the successes of others and feel inadequate, but God's timeline for you is different. He sees the bigger picture, the full arc of your story, and he knows exactly what he's doing. Don't be discouraged by how long it's taking or how tough the road seems right now. The struggles you face are not because you've been abandoned, and they certainly aren't because your faith isn't strong enough. On the contrary, God allows certain challenges because they are necessary to fulfill the greater purpose he has for your life. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed, take a moment to remember this: you and God are walking this journey together. Your path may be difficult, but it is purposeful. As C.S. Lewis reminds us, hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. Stay the course, trust the process, and hold on to the knowledge that God is using even the hardest moments to shape you for something beyond what you can see right now. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "We are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us. We are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be." Have you ever found yourself questioning why suffering seems to accompany growth? Why does it feel like every step toward a deeper understanding of God is marked by trial and affliction? We often desire a smooth path to maturity, but life rarely offers such ease. Pain seems to shadow us, especially when we are closest to the breakthroughs that God has planned. Yet, have you ever wondered if the very struggles you face today are God's way of preparing you for something far greater than you can imagine? So, what exactly is God's purpose in your afflictions? What if your trials are not meaningless but are part of a divine process to make you stronger, wiser, and more aligned with his will? The Bible gives us a profound insight into this process. Galatians 4 verse 1-2 explains that while the heir is a child, he is no different from a slave, even though he owns the entire estate. He must mature under the guidance of guardians and trustees until the time set by the Father. This paints a picture of what affliction does. It processes you into maturity. Just as David learned to say, "Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me," you too will come to understand that the trials in your life are not just obstacles, they are God's tools to shape and refine you. What if maturity, true spiritual maturity, requires that you walk through the fires of affliction rather than around them? We often try to avoid pain, believing that God's blessings will come without hardship. But as C.S. Lewis pointed out, pain insists upon being attended to. It demands your focus, forcing you to confront your weaknesses, fears, and doubts. It strips away the illusions of control and self-sufficiency, bringing you to the place where you realize that without God, you cannot endure. And it's in this space of vulnerability that God begins to work deeply within you, building strength, resilience, and a faith that can withstand any storm. Imagine if, instead of dreading the trials, we saw them as divine training for the authority and responsibility God is preparing us to carry. What kind of wisdom and power could we gain if we trusted that every affliction was moving us closer to the heart of God? Affliction, then, is not about punishment or failure, it is about transformation. It is about becoming more like Christ, who, as Hebrews 5 verse 8 tells us, learned obedience through what he suffered. It is through this process of refinement that God molds us into mature heirs, ready to steward the blessings and responsibilities he has laid out for us. So, what are you facing today? What trial feels overwhelming, and what pain seems too great to bear? Could this very challenge be the means by which God is elevating you, preparing you for the purpose he designed specifically for you? Embrace the afflictions, not as enemies, but as tools of God's grace. These are the instruments that will unlock the full potential of your life in him. C.S. Lewis once reflected, "Courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point. Have you ever wondered why the very things that once broke you now seem like distant memories, no longer holding the same grip on your heart? Trials have a way of molding us in ways we never imagined, stripping away the layers of fear that once paralyzed us. Could it be that those painful moments were designed to cultivate something deeper within you, something more resilient, more courageous? Courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery over it. And when you find yourself laughing at the very things that once made you cry, that is the evidence of God's transformative work in your life. Each challenge, though painful, is a stepping stone to the next stage of glory. If you can endure the fires of today, you will find yourself equipped for the battles of tomorrow. But it doesn't stop with courage. Trials teach you something even more profound: obedience. Isn't it true that in our moments of strength, we tend to rely on ourselves, but in our moments of weakness, we are reminded to submit to a higher power? There's a certain beauty in being brought low, for it is in those moments that God whispers to our souls, reminding us that obedience is the key to sustaining success. As Lewis wisely noted, the human spirit will not even begin to try to surrender self, as long as all seems to be well with it. Obedience is not just about following commands, it's about trusting the heart of the Father, even when we don't understand his methods. Jesus himself, though perfect, learned obedience through suffering. Hebrews 5 verse 8 tells us that although he was a son, he learned obedience from what he suffered. If Jesus, in his perfection, had to endure suffering to learn obedience, how much more must we? Have you ever considered that the hardships you face might be God's way of drawing you closer to his will? The moments that break us are often the same moments that teach us the depth of his love and the power of submission. We tend to think of obedience as a burden, but in reality, it is a gateway to deeper freedom. God uses these trials to humble us, to refine our pride, and to position us for the next stage of his plan. As difficult as it may be, these moments are invitations to lean into his grace and trust his guidance. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world." Have you ever wondered why your deepest struggles often seem to echo so loudly in your life? Why is it that the moments of affliction cut so deep and seem never-ending? These experiences of pain, as unbearable as they might seem, are not without purpose. Have you noticed how, after enduring suffering, you find yourself more empathetic, more compassionate toward others? It's almost as if the affliction has shaped your heart, molded it into something more tender, more understanding. The Bible reminds us in Hebrews 4 verse 15 that we have a Savior who fully understands our pain, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are yet was without sin. Jesus endured suffering, not just to save us, but to walk alongside us in our hardships, to be intimately acquainted with our grief. When you feel broken, lost, or overwhelmed by life's burdens, remember that God is more concerned with your heart than your comfort. He is using these painful seasons to cultivate kindness and compassion in you. The very empathy you now feel for others is birthed from the trials you've walked through. But this isn't where the story ends. Afflictions do not merely cultivate compassion, they also impart grace for your purpose. What if the very battles you face today are directly tied to the purpose God has set for your life? Think of David, his secret struggles with lions and bears in the wilderness were God's way of preparing him for the monumental battle with Goliath. In those hidden moments, where no one else was watching, grace was released to him, equipping him for the challenges ahead. Similarly, your private struggles are not in vain. They are preparing you for the giants you will face, not just for your own victory, but so that you can help others conquer their battles as well. Your experiences of pain and growth are like seeds planted in the soil of affliction, slowly blossoming into wisdom and grace. These are the tools you'll use to guide others through their own hardships. Your journey, though difficult, is shaping you into a source of strength for others. So, take heart. What you've endured is not wasted. God is shaping you into someone with the depth, wisdom, and grace to help others navigate their storms, just as David's struggles prepared him for his moment of victory. In the midst of your pain, it's easy to feel like you're alone, but rest assured God is working behind the scenes, using your affliction to prepare you for a higher purpose. C.S. Lewis once said, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." It's a powerful reminder that our struggles are not in vain, but part of a divine preparation for something far greater. Yet, in moments of deep distress, have you ever found yourself asking, "Why me? Why this pain? Will anything good ever come from this?" These questions echo in the hearts of many who feel trapped in the wilderness of suffering, unsure of how to make sense of the trials that seem unending. It's easy to feel lost, and harder still to believe that there is a purpose behind the pain. But what if your current affliction is not a punishment but a refining fire? What if this very season of difficulty is meant to transform you into someone more resilient, more compassionate, and more aligned with God's ultimate plan for your life? The Bible reminds us in Romans 5 verse 3-4 that we glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. Every trial you face, every hardship you endure, is shaping you for the glorious future God has in store. The real question isn't why you're suffering, but rather how will you allow this suffering to transform you? Take a moment to reflect on your journey. Have you noticed how your afflictions have matured you, made you braver, more compassionate, or wiser? If so, rejoice, for you are on the path toward an extraordinary destiny. Just as C.S. Lewis believed that pain is a tool that God uses to mold us, you are being shaped by every tear and trial. You may not see it yet, but you are becoming the person God needs you to be for the future He has planned. If you're still in the thick of your affliction, unsure how to navigate the pain, know that you are not alone. Many falter during these times because they lack the wisdom to see beyond the immediate struggle. What, then, should you do to ensure that your suffering leads to transformation rather than despair? Let me share with you 5 essential insights that can help you not only endure but thrive. These truths will carry you through your hardest moments and prepare you for the remarkable destiny God has set before you. C.S. Lewis once said, "Relying on God has to begin all over again every day as if nothing had yet been done." Have you ever felt like your faith was being tested, stretched to its limits? In moments of trial, do you find yourself questioning when relief will come or how long you'll have to endure? These are the moments when faith becomes more than belief. It becomes the strength that sustains you. Faith is not about knowing all the answers or seeing the full picture. Faith is trusting God when everything around you feels uncertain and the future seems distant. In times of adversity, faith means continuing to believe even when the road ahead is unclear. It's about planting the seed of trust in God, even if you're surrounded by the soil of pain and suffering. This seed, though buried beneath trials, will eventually bloom into something beautiful in God's timing. As C.S. Lewis also pointed out, God's delays are not God's denials. The journey may feel long, and you may not understand why you're going through certain difficulties. But remember that God's plans are always unfolding in ways we cannot see. Could it be that what you're facing right now is part of a divine preparation? Could it be that your endurance is not just about survival, but about shaping you into the person God needs you to become? Distractions will come. Financial struggles, relationship issues, or health concerns may cloud your vision and pull you away from God's purpose. The enemy thrives on these moments of weakness, seeking to make you focus on what's wrong instead of the progress you've made. But the Bible calls us to fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Hebrews 12 verse 2. Like Peter walking on water, the moment we take our eyes off Christ and focus on the storm, we begin to sink. Are you allowing distractions to pull your focus from the future God has promised you? Moreover, waiting on God can often feel like the hardest test of all. We want instant results, quick fixes, and immediate answers, yet God doesn't rush his work. David was anointed as king long before he ever sat on the throne, and during that waiting period, God was shaping David's heart, his courage, and his faith. In the same way, God is using this season in your life to prepare you not just for the blessings to come, but for the responsibility and character that those blessings will require. God's timing is perfect, even when it feels delayed. Could the trials you are facing be God's way of molding you into someone capable of handling the future He has planned? There is also a lesson in moving forward. Naomi lost everything in Moab, but she made the decision to return to Bethlehem, a move that ultimately led to the lineage of Christ. Have you lost something or someone that made you feel like life would never be the same? Losing doesn't mean the end, it often signals a new beginning. God uses our pain as a foundation for new life, new blessings, and new purpose. Don't let the past keep you stuck in sorrow. Move forward, trusting that God has a greater plan than you can currently see. Finally, the power of joy and praise in the midst of suffering cannot be overstated. When Paul and Silas were thrown into prison, they could have wallowed in despair. Instead, they chose to sing praises to God, and their faith led to miraculous freedom. Praise shifts our focus from what is going wrong to who God is. It repositions our hearts to receive His peace and strength. Joy in affliction is not a denial of pain, but a declaration that God is greater than the pain. As 1 Peter 4 verse 12-13 tells us, we should not be surprised by fiery trials, but rejoice in them, for they align us with Christ and prepare us for His glory. God is not blind to your suffering. Every trial you are enduring is part of the process that is shaping your future glory. Keep your faith alive, stay focused on His promises, and never underestimate the power of praise, even in the darkest moments. He is working, even now, preparing you for the destiny He has laid out before you. Trust in His perfect timing and know that He is faithful. Amen.